Brazil is once again the first round of a long 17-race season, but Interlagos is different this year. The crowd's beloved Ayrton Senna, Brazil's greatest racing driver, is no longer here, but his memory lives on. And the crowd have seen Damon Hill take the first pole position of the season, Michael Schumacher alongside him on the front row, setting the stage for a battle that is going to go on for most of the season. Damon Hill in the blue Williams Renault once more, Michael Schumacher supported as always by the Benetton mechanics, and Nigel Mansell should be here but he's not. Mark Blundell takes his place for McLaren. At the start, Damon Hill is quick, Michael Schumacher's quicker. Schumacher gets the inside line as they go down to that first left-hander. It's Schumacher first, Damon Hill second, David Coulthard is third, with Mika Häkkinen in the McLaren moving up to fourth place, and Olivier Panis off into the wall with the Ligier. Damon Hill challenges Schumacher. There's a balloon in the way, which doesn't last long. And still, Damon is pursuing, looking for a way past on a slippery track. Schumacher shuts the door, holds him out, and the battle goes on to the first pit stops. Out go both the Jordans, including local hero Rubens Barrichello. And in comes Michael Schumacher for his first pit stop. Damon Hill goes through into the lead. Schumacher rejoins, but Hill maintains the lead through his pit stop as Mika Häkkinen makes a brave attack on the Ferrari of Jean Alesi. Alesi's a hard man to pass, but Mika Häkkinen's determined. Watch him use this back marker and squeeze alongside, and then at 180 miles an hour, he says, hello. Wheel to wheel, but Häkkinen is there on the inside. Häkkinen goes by in one of the bravest manoeuvres of the year. But this is Hill in the lead when it all goes wrong. The rear suspension has broken, and what looked like a clear victory for Hill has gone to Schumacher. Taki Inui ends his first race for Arrows in smoke and flame, and Michael Schumacher goes on his way to a conclusive victory. 1 to Schumacher, with David Coulthard in second place and Gerhard Berger's Ferrari third. But the talking isn't over yet, because when the fuel is inspected, it turns out that the fuel in Schumacher's car and in Coulthard's doesn't match the sample that the teams had to provide at the beginning of the year. Schumacher in the middle, Coulthard on the left, Berger on the right. But meanwhile, the fuel is being looked at, and in the end they decide to leave the results as they are for the drivers, but the teams involved lose their championship points. Round 2 is in Buenos Aires, the first Argentine Grand Prix for 14 years, and Carlos Reutemann demonstrates last year's Ferrari in the rain. Among those that greet the former Argentinian Formula One star is Bernie Ecclestone. This is David Coulthard's first pole for Williams. Eddie Irvine is fourth on the grid, and Coulthard makes a blinding start. Jean Alesi makes a worse one and tries to make up for it by leaving his braking impossibly late in the Ferrari, and that causes mayhem. Alesi's car is badly damaged. He's out. So is Ligier driver Olivier Panis. And Barrichello and Badoa are locked together stationary. The red flag is the inevitable result, and so, as Jean Alesi rushes back to the pits for his spare, there's another start. Yet again, Coulthard gets it absolutely right and storms away, but this time it's Mika Häkkinen who has problems. He runs over the wing of Eddie Irvine's Jordan, punctures his left rear tyre, and he's out. Coulthard is building up a confident lead ahead of Schumacher and Damon Hill, but then his car falters, and as the revs drop, Schumacher and Hill go by, he finds the revs again, spins the rear tyres, and has to watch his teammate pass him. Coulthard down to third, Schumacher leads. Irvine's off with a blown engine. And now Damon Hill wants the lead. He charges down the inside of Schumacher and takes it. Coulthard follows him through, a very brave move as they come up to lap a back marker. Schumacher tries to use the back marker, but Coulthard uses it better. In comes Damon Hill for a pit stop, and all goes well this time. But not well for David Coulthard. The problem with his engine isn't solved, and after half a lap in the lead, Coulthard is out. Jean Alesi is now at the front, but Hill, making up time after his pit stop, is in pursuit. Alesi has to make his pit stop, he does so, and that's all Hill needs to take the lead and to take the checkered flag. Alesi second for Ferrari, and Schumacher and Benetton a subdued third today. Now, after 2 South American races, it's to Europe, to Imola, the home of Ferrari fans, where a minute's silence is observed before the race as they remember the tragedy of last year that cost the lives of Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger. The race starts on a damp track. Most of the cars are on wet weather tyres, but not all. And Schumacher takes the lead from Jean Alesi and Damon Hill. Nigel Mansell, his debut this year, is on slicks, and so far it's not the equipment to have. But soon it dries, and in comes Michael Schumacher from the lead to go on to his slick tyres. Damon Hill comes in on the same lap. Schumacher's away, and Hill pursues him down the pit lane. This means Gerhard Berger is leading, but Berger too must come in for his tyres as Schumacher, on his slicks on a still damp track, gets it all wrong. It's a big accident, but Schumacher happily is unhurt. Now Berger in the lead comes in for his dry weather tyres, but it goes horribly wrong. He's stalled the engine. They get it restarted again. He rejoins, but this could have lost a victory, and it doesn't please the Ferrari mechanics. So now the battle for the lead is between the two Williamses, but Coulthard throws it away on the slippery track. Into the gravel he goes. He's able to restart, having done a neat 360 degrees. Patrick Head is none too pleased. Michael Schumacher gets a ride back to the pits. And now Patrick Head is even less pleased. David Coulthard has made a stop for fresh tyres. He's broken the speed limit in the pit lane, and he's got a 10-second stop-go penalty. So, as Coulthard rejoins, Hill is leading comfortably now. Jean Alesi is second. And in the battle for fifth place, Nigel Mansell and Eddie Irvine collide. Irvine is quite clear about whose fault it is. And the pit signals welcome Damon Hill, who goes to victory, takes the checkered flag, 2 on the trot. He's now the World Championship leader, and Ferrari are second and third on their home ground. Alesi could do no more. Now to Spain for round 4. Michael Schumacher's on pole position, and the start's pretty unusual. There's the red light, but where's the green? Certainly that surprised David Coulthard, and Eddie Irvine is able to drive round him. Schumacher leads. Ferraris and Damon Hill battle over second place, and it's Alesi who's second. Damon Hill takes third, squeezing ahead of Gerhard Berger. Stuck behind Alesi, Damon Hill gets impatient because Michael Schumacher, his championship rival, is getting away. But Damon never quite seems to have the steam to get past the shrieking Ferrari, and Schumacher's lead builds and builds. Nigel Mansell comes in to retire. It's actually the end of his Formula One career, although we don't know it at the moment. And this was how it all went wrong. The car is apparently undamaged, but Mansell says it's undrivable. And still Damon Hill is stuck behind the Ferrari of Jean Alesi. He can't pass it until this happens. A dramatic Ferrari engine failure, an unhappy Jean Todt, and a resigned Jean Alesi. Meanwhile, this is Johnny Herbert's pit stop. Look at the jack. They don't get it off the car before he motors off down the pit lane. The Benetton mechanics are somewhat bemused, the crowd are intrigued, And Flavio Briatore can't believe it, but they get the jack back and Johnny Herbert's out there. So, out there is Michael Schumacher. He takes a conclusive victory, the Benetton lads are delighted. But where's Damon Hill? His engine has faltered on the final lap, he's coasting over the line, furious, and Johnny Herbert is second, to be congratulated by Michael Schumacher. Gerhard Berger is third, Damon Hill a disappointed fourth. It's a 1-2 for Benetton, and it's Johnny Herbert's first podium. He gets most of the champagne. So to Monte Carlo, the most glamorous of all the Formula One venues. Graham Hill won here 5 times, and his son Damon is on pole position, ahead of Schumacher. It's always a difficult start into the narrow Saint-Devote corner. Hill and Schumacher are side by side. Hill has the lead, but behind him, mayhem breaks loose. Berger squeezes Coulthard, Coulthard squeezes Alesi hits Coulthard up into the air, Berger hits Alesi also, the road is blocked by bent and battered Formula One cars, and Eddie Irvine has his own little accident against his teammate Barrichello. The red flag is the inevitable result. Jean Todt and Niki Lauda can't believe it, and so the spare cars have to be readied once more, but watch it from the camera behind Damon Hill's car. So the red flag means that spare cars can be used, the race will be restarted, and Gerhard Berger and Jean Alesi talk about how they can avoid doing it again. Michael Schumacher gets ready for the restart. Here it is once more. Hill, again on pole, makes a wonderful start. Coulthard almost gets inside Schumacher, but not quite. And miraculously this time, they all get through the first corner unscathed. Up the hill and into Casino Square, Damon Hill leads, Schumacher is second, Coulthard is third, then the Ferraris of Alesi and Berger fourth and fifth, Johnny Herbert sixth as they plunge downhill to the Mirabeau. And there have been 6 cars penalised for jump starts. This is Heinz-Harald Frentzen rejoining after his 10-second penalty. And as they're already funneling through the back markers, Michael Schumacher knows he's got a problem on his hands. Overtaking on this circuit is very hard indeed. This race is going to be all down to the pit stop strategy. And what Williams don't know is that Benetton have decided that they will only bring in Schumacher once. That's the single pit stop that Schumacher makes. And as he goes back out again, Hill has a second pit stop still to come. Martin Brundle, being chased by Alesi, spins. Alesi is in the barriers. Hill goes through to retake second place. Jean Todt is not happy with another Ferrari retirement, but even less happy is poor Jean Alesi. In comes Gerhard Berger for his pit stop. The Ferrari men look after him as Jean Alesi ponders his wretched luck. And Michael Schumacher continues to dominate the race. It's been a copybook win for him, and it's the first Renault win ever at Monaco. So 10 points for Schumacher. Only 6 for Damon Hill. He's not at all happy with the result as they stand either side of Prince Rainier of Monaco. So to Canada. And once again, Michael Schumacher has pole position. Damon Hill and David Coulthard behind him on the grid. And on a still damp track, Schumacher makes a perfect start, leads from Hill, Coulthard, Berger and Alesi. Into that tight first left-hander, everybody jockeying for position, but it's Schumacher moving away now from the 2 Williamses as Johnny Herbert tries to get among the Ferraris. It's still damp and slippery under the bridge, and that's going to catch out David Coulthard before the race is very much older. This is Coulthard's eye view, and he's into the gravel and he's out of the race. And while all that was going on, Jean Alesi was just overtaking his Ferrari teammate. The 2 of them very, very nearly got involved, but Alesi is through past Berger, and David Coulthard is very unhappy. Now Damon Hill is under very strong pressure from Jean Alesi and from Berger. The track is still very slippery, and Alesi squeezes bravely down the inside of Damon Hill into the hairpin, much to Hill's surprise. And to that of engineer David Brown. Then Gerhard Berger tries the same manoeuvre. He gets inside Damon Hill under braking for a fast right and then the left that follows it. He gets through, And as the Ferrari mechanics wait for Gerhard Berger's fuel stop, where is Berger? He's run out of fuel and he's coasting at walking pace down the pit lane, frustrated and furious. He gets to the Ferrari mechanics, they push him in, the car has run out on its final lap before the pit stop, and that means that the two Jordans of Barrichello and Irvine have been promoted to 4th and 5th. That becomes 3rd and 4th when Damon Hill's car comes to a stop. Look at his body language. It's been a wretched weekend for Williams altogether. Now leader Schumacher is slowing. He's slipped right down the field. He's passed by the battle between Brundle and Berger, and it seems that the Benetton won't change gear. He struggles into the pits, and they have a steering wheel ready for him because that's where the gear change buttons are. They swap that, and meanwhile Jean Alesi goes into the lead in the Ferrari. Here's Berger attacking Brundle. Literally. So that's the end of their race, but Jean Todt still has a car in the running because Jean Alesi is in the lead. Jean Alesi is going to win the Canadian Grand Prix, a victory at last at his 91st attempt and on his 31st birthday too. And Jordan have something to celebrate because Rubens Barrichello is second, Eddie Irvine is third, Jean Alesi's car stops on the slowing down lap and he gets a ride home from 5th placed Michael Schumacher. Back to Europe and the French Grand Prix at Magny-Cours. Another pole position for Damon Hill, with Schumacher second quickest, ahead of David Coulthard, Jean Alesi and Rubens Barrichello in the Jordan. At the green light, Damon Hill makes a perfect start. Michael Schumacher follows him. We watch from Coulthard's camera as Rubens Barrichello jumps the start, goes past Coulthard and into 3rd place. But he's going to be penalised for that. Off goes Mika Hakkinen, pushed offline by Jean Alesi, but rejoins. And Jean Alesi then tangles with Johnny Herbert, spins him round. This is all still on lap 1, but Alesi manages to stay on the island. Here's the 10-second penalty for Rubens Barrichello. Olivier Panis in the Ligier gets the same punishment too and has to queue up behind him. Back into the race they go, and meanwhile, Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher are battling over 1st place. And watch them come up to lap Roberto Moreno in the 40. There seems to be a moment when Hill falters and Schumacher very nearly hits him from behind. After the race, Schumacher even accused Damon Hill of possibly giving him a brake test. But the battle goes on. Schumacher looking for an opportunity to get alongside the Williams. He gets very close to it coming onto the main straight in the sharp corner, but still Hill's able to shut him out. However, the pit stops are coming, and once again that's going to sort things out. In comes Gerhard Berger. And it doesn't go at all well for Berger. They can't get the fuel hose on. It's a disastrous stop for Gerhard, and it drops him from 3rd to 16th. In comes Damon Hill. Schumacher has already stopped earlier. Schumacher comes into sight as Hill is finishing his pit stop, and as Hill goes down the pit lane, Schumacher goes past into the lead. Hill had been delayed by traffic before his stop, and the Williams team wonder whether they've been outmanoeuvred by Benetton again. So Michael Schumacher scores another victory. Damon Hill is a distant second, and there's a great battle for 3rd place with David Coulthard just pipping Martin Brundle's Ligier. Once again, it's glory for Michael, disappointment for Damon. But the next race is Damon's home race, the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, and Damon has pole yet again. He's determined to repeat last year's home win. He makes a great start and Schumacher doesn't make a good one. Watch Jean Alesi's Ferrari coming carving through from the 3rd row. Down to Copse, and Alesi is alongside Schumacher. Schumacher locks up his brakes. Alesi goes through to 2nd place. It's looking good for Damon Hill as Schumacher moves frustratedly from side to side to try to get past the Ferrari. David Coulthard is in 4th place. It's Johnny Herbert 5th and Mika Hakkinen 6th. On to the Hangar Straight and on down to Stowe, Hill moving away from the Ferrari, and still nothing that Schumacher can do about it, locking up his brakes once more, charging up behind the Ferrari, and off goes Martin Brundle. He's not going to do well in his home Grand Prix here today. The Ligier is beached and he's out of the race. Also out of luck is Gerhard Berger. A front wheel is loose after his pit stop, as a kick shows. Now in comes Damon Hill for his second pit stop. The Benetton team are watching carefully. Schumacher's already had 2 stops. Can Damon Hill retain his lead? Schumacher is approaching. Flavio Briatore watches it all happening. Damon Hill finishes his stop, goes down the pit lane, but Schumacher is coming down the pit straight now. David Brown watches it, and Schumacher comes through Copse as Damon comes down the pit lane to rejoin. Schumacher has the lead, but Damon, on fresh tyres, is attacking. He thinks he sees a gap, he goes for it. Schumacher reckons that's no gap at all. The inevitable collision puts them both into disgruntled retirement. But it's still Williams versus Benetton, as Johnny Herbert has the lead now, and David Coulthard is going for it, watched by the Williams team. And finally Coulthard manages to use a back marker, duck out of the slipstream, get alongside Herbert and go into the lead. Coulthard first, Herbert second, as Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher walk home.
I think it was not necessary what happened there. They could have such a...
But it's not going to be David Coulthard's race today. He's been speeding in the pit lane. He gets the inevitable 10-second stop-go penalty. That loses him the lead to Herbert and allows Jean Alesi to go by into second place. Behind Coulthard, there's a great battle going on for 4th place between Mark Blundell and Rubens Barrichello. Barrichello attacks, but comes off second best at Abbey. So, Johnny Herbert is going to win his first Grand Prix on his home circuit, and Michael Schumacher's delighted for him. The checkered flag waves, the crowd go absolutely mad, so do the Benetton team. Johnny Herbert's first Grand Prix victory, but 2 weeks later, the huge crowd at Hockenheim have eyes only for Schumacher. They're not pleased, therefore, when Damon Hill takes his 5th pole position. But Michael Schumacher is second quickest, and as the lights go green, the Williams Renault is first away, the Benetton Renault is in pursuit. David Coulthard is third. Out of the stadium, onto the long back section through the forest they go. But then as they return at the end of the first lap, Damon Hill's lead looks pretty comprehensive. But watch him come into the first corner of the second lap. Thud into the bank goes Damon Hill, and the crowd are absolutely delighted. It's a sad end, a premature end, to the German Grand Prix for Damon Hill, and it's handed Michael Schumacher the race on a plate. Hill runs back to the pits. Frank Williams is not amused, and nor is Gerhard Berger, who's been given a stop-go jump-start penalty. And then in comes Jean Alesi, who's had a dreadful weekend and doesn't even talk to the mechanics before he parks the car. So, both Ferraris have had problems. Here on Mercedes-Benz's home ground is the end of Mika Häkkinen's McLaren-Mercedes race. Not good news for Ron Dennis. This is Michael Schumacher's second stop. Williams are on a single-stop strategy, and David Coulthard is approaching while Schumacher's in the pits. Will Schumacher keep the lead, or will he lose it? Well, as Coulthard comes through the twisting section, Schumacher barrels out of the pits, and he's back onto the circuit before Coulthard is on the start-finish straight. So, Benetton seem to be ruling the roost once again. Coulthard does his best, closing as best he can to within 8 seconds of the flying German, but it's all running according to plan for Benetton and for Michael Schumacher. But not for Jordan or Eddie Irvine. Both Irvine and Barrichello are out, but the German flags greet the first German winner of a post-war German Grand Prix as Michael Schumacher stacks up 10 more championship points. He now has a 21-point lead over Damon Hill. Gerhard Berger, last year's winner, recovers to finish third in this race, with David Coulthard second. So to Hungary and the Hungaroring, and Damon Hill's 4th consecutive pole. It's an all-Williams front row because Coulthard beats Schumacher into second place in qualifying. Berger is 4th, ahead of Häkkinen. It's been a bleak period for Damon Hill. He has to score some points today. And as the light goes green, his start is perfect. David Coulthard follows him into second place, while Schumacher and Berger are wheel-to-wheel for third. Rubens Barrichello makes up a couple of places in the Jordan into the first corner. But it's Hill, Coulthard, Schumacher, and going round the outside, Barrichello almost gets shut out, and into fourth place just is Gerhard Berger. Ron Dennis doesn't like the sound of Mika Häkkinen's McLaren, and sure enough, Häkkinen parks just out of sight, going on to the next lap. Behind Hill, Coulthard makes a mistake going into the chicane, runs onto the dust, and that's all Schumacher needs to get alongside and sneak through into second place. So now it's Williams, Benetton, Williams. Damon Hill comes in for a routine stop just ahead of Michael Schumacher. In fact, just as he leaves, Schumacher comes in, and that could have been a very worrying collision. But Hill's safely back out again into the lead, but Schumacher's pit stop doesn't go well. They can't get as much fuel into the car as they should have done, and as Schumacher leaves, they work out that he's gone out without enough fuel. They're going to have to bring him in again. So bad news for Benetton, and now bad news for Jordan, because creeping in with a broken clutch comes Eddie Irvine. Michael Schumacher doesn't make it to that extra fuel stop because his fuel pump packs up and you can hear the car spluttering. So Schumacher out. Not a good day for Benetton, an unusual mechanical failure. In fact, Schumacher's only mechanical failure of the year, as Damon Hill goes on to get the checkered flag to Patrick Head's delight. Rubens Barrichello should be third behind David Coulthard, but his car has faltered and a four-car battle comes through. Berger, Herbert, Frentzen and Panis, and poor Rubens Barrichello can't believe it. The Union Jack welcomes a Williams 1-2 for Hill and for Coulthard. So to Spa, the classic Belgian road circuit, and it's Gerhard Berger's birthday. His daughter wants to spray him with cream, and Gerhard has to fight her off. But it's good news anyway, because thanks to rain in qualifying, Gerhard Berger's on pole, Michael Schumacher is 16th on the grid, Damon Hill only 8th. It's an all-Ferrari front row. Jean Alesi makes a better start than Berger, however, and Mika Häkkinen's trying to sneak up the inside as they go into the first corner hairpin. Alesi leads from Herbert. Then it's Berger, Häkkinen and Blundell. Irvine hits Coulthard in the hairpin, but they carry on, and as they storm down the hill, a Ferrari leads to the delight of the pit crew. But watch Johnny Herbert have a go round Eau Rouge. The Ferrari just hangs on to the lead, however, and this is Mika Häkkinen throwing it all away. Almost collected by David Coulthard. He can't restart the car, and then in comes a furious Jean Alesi. They give him some fresh tyres, but the rear suspension is broken. Watch the attitude of the car as it tries to drive away from the pits, the front left-hand wheels in the air. So that's Jean Alesi's race run. Johnny Herbert is in the lead now, but he's being challenged by David Coulthard. And off he goes. He carries on, but he's going to have another spin later as well. In 6 laps, Michael Schumacher's gone from 16th to 5th. He makes it 4th as he passes Eddie Irvine. It's not going to be David Coulthard's day today. His gearbox fails while he's leading. He retires. Hill is first now from Berger, but when they both come in for their routine stops, this is Hill and this is Berger, Michael Schumacher has taken 16 laps to get from 16th place to the lead. And the predominantly German crowd here near the German border are delighted. This is Gerhard Berger, and his race is run. He talks to the Ferrari crew and tells them it's all over. And meanwhile, rain has begun. Damon Hill has come in for wet weather tyres, but Michael Schumacher elects to stay out on the slippery circuit on slicks. Now this is Eddie Irvine's refuelling stop, and watch the fuel come out of the hose onto the right-hand pod. There's the fire. The fire burns fiercely for 6 seconds before the fire extinguishers put it out. But calm Eddie Irvine just sits through most of it before he decides to get out. Now, Damon Hill on wet weather tyres has caught up with Schumacher on slicks. They're side by side, but watch Schumacher shut him out as they go through Les Combes. Hill thought he'd got the lead. Schumacher had other ideas and just pushes him onto the curb. And Hill is not pleased as the Williams team watch. A lap later, Schumacher gets it wrong at the same corner. Over the curbs, over the grass, Hill goes into the lead, but now the road is drying, Hill is losing grip, and Schumacher goes ahead again 3 corners later. Hill comes in for slicks now. Yet another stop for him, off come the wet weather tyres, but now it starts to rain again. The course car comes out, Schumacher takes the opportunity to come in for wet weather tyres, so does Damon Hill, but Damon Hill has now had 2 stops more than Schumacher has. He's a long way back now. Schumacher waits behind the course car for the race to be on again, and when it is, Damon Hill is 3rd behind Martin Brundle and has to work pretty hard past Brundle to get his 2nd place back. So yet another checkered flag for Michael Schumacher. More celebrations from the Benetton team. This is becoming a habit. But Damon finds time to complain to Schumacher about what he sees as his balking tactics when they were racing in the rain. Needless to say, Schumacher's version of events is a little bit different. 2 weeks later, Monza, Italy, and the excited fans, the tifosi, who've come, of course, to hope for a Ferrari victory. But it's David Coulthard who has pole position, and then, amazingly, he throws it away on the warm-up lap by spinning off in front of Schumacher at the Ascari chicane. Schumacher can't believe his eyes. But that means that when the grid forms up, pole position is empty, Schumacher's at the front, with Ferraris and Damon Hill just behind. Schumacher charges down to the first chicane, 2 Ferraris, 1 on each side, but Schumacher maintains the lead as they go in there, with Berger coming up the inside and Alesi almost losing his nose on the back of his teammate's car. But the dust from Coulthard's spin is still there on the track, on the Ascari chicane, and on the 2nd lap, Max Papis finds it, spins off, you'll see it in the background, there he goes, and takes with him Montermini, Bouillon and Moreno. The track is blocked, out comes the red flag, and David Coulthard, who'd just gone off to get showered and changed, has to get dressed again in double quick time. He's in the spare car, he's on that pole position, and this time he takes the lead in the Italian Grand Prix. And watch Gerhard Berger going down the inside of Michael Schumacher for 2nd place. They're wheel to wheel into the chicane. Berger holds the line. Schumacher locks wheels. The Ferrari is 2nd, but it's still David Coulthard out in front. And Coulthard holds the lead for 13 laps until a front wheel bearing seizes. And Coulthard is out. The crowd go mad because it's a Ferrari in the lead. Gerhard Berger leads. Michael Schumacher is 2nd. Damon Hill is 3rd. And they're going to have yet another contretemps. As they lap Inui's arrows, Damon Hill hits Michael Schumacher from behind. The 2 of them spin off. There's the arrows moving out of the way. There's Damon Hill hitting the back of the Benetton. The 2 of them spin across the gravel, and Michael Schumacher goes straight across to Damon Hill to have a word. He's very angry, but they're both out, and as Gerhard Berger comes into the pits for his refuelling stop, Jean Alesi goes by into the lead. It's Ferraris 1 and 2, but not for long, because a camera falls off the back of Alesi's car, hits Berger's front suspension, and Berger is out. And then it all goes wrong for Alesi. A rear wheel bearing has disintegrated, he's out, another Italian tragedy for Jean Alesi. And so, Benetton luck in again. Johnny Herbert inherits the lead, Mika Hakkinen is 2nd for McLaren, Heinz-Harald Frentzen gets his first podium to finish 3rd for Sauber, another race of changing fortunes. So to Portugal, and David Coulthard is on pole again. But this start is disastrous for Ukio Katayama. Watch his Tyrrell in the middle of the grid hit Luca Badoer's Minardi and go completely out of control. Katayama remains motionless in the cockpit. The race is red flagged, but fortunately when Katayama is released, he's only slightly hurt. The race is restarted. Once again, Coulthard goes into the lead. But this time, Schumacher gets a run round the outside of Damon Hill and goes by into 2nd place. But Schumacher's on a 3-stop policy. Hill is stopping only twice. So at the end of Schumacher's 3rd stop, he comes out behind Damon Hill. He's on fresh tyres, however. Hill's tyres are nearly finished, and Schumacher's able to squeeze through on the inside to the delight of the Benetton team. But there's glory for Williams because David Coulthard has finally made it to the checkered flag. David Coulthard is a first-time winner here at Estoril in Portugal, and he's congratulated by Schumacher. Damon Hill is 3rd. So to the Nürburgring, the European Grand Prix and the first race at the remodelled German circuit for 10 years. Coulthard's 3rd pole position running, and Damon Hill on the wet side of the road is much slower away. Jean Alesi bravely has decided to start on the still wet circuit on slick tyres. And Coulthard leaves Schumacher and, surprisingly, Eddie Irvine, who's up in the 3rd place, ahead of Damon Hill. It doesn't take Damon Hill long to get past Eddie Irvine, which he does here on the first lap, but it's still Coulthard 1, Schumacher 2, Hill 3, Irvine 4, Herbert 5. Heinz-Harald Frentzen has a stop-go penalty for a jump start, bad news in his home race, and now Damon Hill is right up with Michael Schumacher, challenging only for Schumacher to fight him off. Soon they must both come in for slick tyres. And they decide to come in on the same lap. There's the Benetton, just behind him is the Williams, and look at the difference in their pit stop times. This is where races are won and lost these days. Schumacher out after 6.6 seconds, 3 seconds longer for Damon Hill. When David Coulthard comes in for slicks, Jean Alesi, having done the whole race on slick tyres, can now build a huge lead. He doesn't need to stop. Damon Hill gets by Schumacher with a particularly brave move. All the way round the outside, Schumacher has to let him go, but then just a few corners later, in the hairpin coming onto the start-finish straight, Damon Hill runs a little bit wide. We're travelling with him now, and as he goes wide, Schumacher sneaks through on the inside and gets his place back. On this slippery surface, it's wonderful racing, and Hill has a big sideways moment fighting for grip as he tries to get the place back. Off goes Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the end of a sad race for him, and still the tremendous battle goes on with Schumacher now squeezing past David Coulthard. So with Alesi out in front, despite this pit stop, Schumacher now comes in for another stop, and that means that Damon Hill is now in 2nd place and challenging Jean Alesi for the lead. He tries to go inside, he's pushed onto the grass by Alesi, the front wing becomes detached, and he's going to have to stop. Gerhard Berger's being refuelled in the pits, but the car is not right, and he's going to retire with an electrical problem. And meanwhile, Damon Hill is coming in down the pit lane. The Williams mechanics are ready with a fresh nose cone. On goes the new nose, and of course, Alesi has now moved away and gone. Damon Hill back on the circuit, trying to catch up. It's very slippery. He's on the curbs, he's on the grass, he's in the barriers, he is out. That is the end of Damon Hill's European Grand Prix, and to all intents and purposes, it has to be the end of his World Championship challenge. Damon Hill out, and now Jean Alesi in the lead, but Michael Schumacher is giving pursuit. Schumacher on fresh tyres is up with Alesi, is forcing his way alongside. They're wheel to wheel. Alesi isn't having it. Alesi shuts the door. Still Schumacher comes back. A battle to the checkered flag in the European Grand Prix. And now Schumacher goes round the outside on that left-hander, squeezes through the right-hander that follows. And Michael Schumacher has taken the lead for Benetton in the European Grand Prix, onto the start-finish straight for the last time. Yet another Benetton victory, and even Damon Hill has to applaud. On his home ground, he's overjoyed. That's Michael Schumacher. He's not champion yet, but he knows it can't be far away. And this is where he could do it. We've travelled to Japan for the first of 2 Japanese races. This is the Pacific Grand Prix at the little Aida circuit. Yet again, we've got David Coulthard on pole and Damon Hill alongside him. And at the start, Hill's one concern is to block Schumacher and watch him move across, hold Schumacher off, and leave the inside clear for the 2 Ferraris to go through. Well, Alesi does go through, Berger very nearly does, so as they sort each other out, it's Coulthard first, Alesi second, Hill third, Berger fourth, and Michael Schumacher's right down in fifth place, but not for long. This is Schumacher passing Berger to be fourth. One Ferrari disposed of. Now Damon Hill tries to dispose of another as he gets alongside Alesi at the end of the start-finish straight, but once again Alesi is a tougher nut to crack. Damon can't do it, and it's still Coulthard moving away from the battle behind him. Alesi second, Hill third, and Schumacher fourth. And they all come in to the pits at the same time. Alesi, Hill and Schumacher, and this is a perfect point to look at the difference in pit stop efficiency between these three teams. Schumacher is the last in. He's the first of the trio out. Brilliant work by the Benetton team. Ferrari follow him out, and Williams are slowest, and that moves Damon Hill down into the traffic and really puts the seal on this race for him. David Coulthard comes in for his second stop, and that's when Michael Schumacher goes through into the lead, the world champion-elect. With a puncture, Eddie Irvine understeers off the road. It's been another disastrous day for Jordan. And so the checkered flag greets Michael Schumacher, 1995 world champion, and Flavio Briatore helps him celebrate his second consecutive title. The second Japanese race, Suzuka, a week later, wet as it so often is in Suzuka, and Michael Schumacher has amended his cap. This time Schumacher has got pole position. Jean Alesi is with him on the front row, and Alesi starts to move before the lights go green. That's going to cost him a penalty as Schumacher goes away into the lead, and Mika Häkkinen is close ahead of the Williamses, which have qualified badly. Jean Todt calls in Jean Alesi. He comes in for his stop-go penalty, and he's wondering how soon he can change on to slicks. Mika Häkkinen is second now. Damon Hill third behind him, can't get by the McLaren. And now Alesi comes early for slicks. It's still very slippery, but we're going to see his wet weather control. He gets put onto the grass by the Minardi of Lamy. A 360-degree spin on wet grass and mud, on slicks, back onto the road, and he presses on. Now Michael Schumacher comes in for slicks. Doesn't lose the lead, but the flying Jean Alesi takes second place round the outside going into the chicane from Damon Hill. A phenomenal piece of driving. Alesi and Ferrari are now second, but Gerhard Berger's Ferrari is out, retiring from 8th place. Now the flying Jean Alesi is clearly catching Michael Schumacher, but his gearbox isn't equal to the strain. After one of the drives of the year, Jean Alesi is out and Michael Schumacher is out in front on his own, but it's raining again at the Spoon corner. Off goes Damon Hill, bouncing across the gravel, manages to keep the car the right way up, pointing in the right direction, refines the tarmac once more. He's not the only one in trouble. This is David Coulthard at the same place. A Land Rover would do a better job. He ships an enormous amount of gravel as he bounces across the kitty litter, regains the tarmac, and at the next corner, as he hits the brakes, all that kitty litter comes out of the air intakes. Watch it rush forward as he hits the brakes, and he goes off on it again, and this time, comprehensively retires. Damon Hill again. He's had a pit stop for a fresh nose, but the car's still very hard to control on the slippery surface, and Damon Hill too decides now he's had enough. Both the Williamses out, another disastrous weekend for them, so Mika Häkkinen is second for McLaren, a fine performance, and Michael Schumacher, yet again, a winner for the 9th time this year. Johnny Herbert is third, and Benetton are Constructors' Champions. So to the 17th and final round, and the last time the Australian Grand Prix will be held here on the streets of Adelaide. An enormous crowd of 204,000 to see Damon Hill start from pole position with teammate Coulthard alongside, Schumacher and Berger on row 2, and although Hill makes the best start, watch Coulthard challenge him into that first S-bend and come out of it with the lead. Schumacher has made a bad start. He's dropped behind both the Ferraris. Berger is third, Alesi is fourth, and as they string round the bumps and curbs of Adelaide, Schumacher settles down to the task of getting through the Ferraris. He passes Alesi at the end of the long straight without too much difficulty this time. And then a lap later, he has to do it to Gerhard Berger. It's time for leader David Coulthard's pit stop, and as he comes down the pit lane, he loses control, understeers into the wall and out of the race. An extraordinary error, one that he'll regret for a long time. See it again? It's dusty and slippery, and off he goes. Rubens Barrichello does something similar while in 8th place in the Jordan. Michael Schumacher comes out of the pits after his stop just behind Jean Alesi, and the battle that they have ends in tears for both of them. But first, Damon Hill moving away into an ever more conclusive lead. Here comes Schumacher trying to pass Alesi once more. He does so, but Alesi just doesn't want him to get away with it. The two drive into one another. Both of them blame the other after the incident, and both cars are sufficiently damaged to have to retire. This is Gerhard Berger. Listen to him. A very unhealthy Ferrari. Then a gearbox problem for the man who inherits second place, Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Johnny Herbert inherits second place, out with driveshaft failure. And now Olivier Panis is second in the Ligier and is smoking so badly that Damon Hill laps him for a second time on his way to the checkered flag, which gives him a great conclusion to what has been a difficult season for him. Behind Olivier Panis, Gianni Morbidelli is an astonished third for Arrows. It's been a long year, but looking back over 17 dramatic races, it's clear that 1995 has belonged to Michael Schumacher and to Benetton Renault.